Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Maybe it's still morning, maybe it's evening. We will get started in just a couple of minutes. We'll let some others trickle in here. I'll put up today's agenda. All right, we'll get going. If others join us, that will be fabulous. We'll catch them up. Welcome. Today we are going to chat about our Tutor Creator built within our Chat for Schools platform. First, I'll just briefly introduce myself. I see some familiar names already, so I don't want to be too redundant. And then we'll discuss Tutor Creator. And then I have one more like further connection. Actually, maybe I'll have a couple depending on time to kind of walk through how we can really expand on all the resources available within Chat for Schools, but also how we can really tie in something like our Tutor Creator into another tool as well. And I'll give you some insight on how this is going to be even simpler in the future with our tools. So we will jump right in. It will be great today. We're going to play around. We're going to create some tutors. And at the end, if you have really awesome examples to share, we'll even share them out with the group. It's always nice to have great examples from other teachers. So we will get started. I am Jessica. I have been running the Learning Studio series. So this is our sixth one. We've kind of gone through each of the tools so far. So if you've missed any and you are interested in that recording, please let us know. Before joining Skillstruck, I was an innovation coach in an elementary school. So I taught technology, computer science, a lot of creation, also managed the library, all of that good stuff. Obviously, things have changed in the past couple of years that I've been gone with AI, and I'm just happy to be here today to share with you some ideas to bring this into whatever classroom that you are in charge of. So with that, we'll just briefly discuss Skillstruck. Maybe you are new to our team here, but we have been supporting schools first with computer science for several years. And with that came a lot of questions over the past year about AI and what we should do with AI, how can we implement AI, and so launched Chat for Schools. And so we will dive in a little bit to some of those tools today to support you with your AI journey. So I'm going to skip through this just because I want to get right into things. Like I mentioned before, we have been running this series for several weeks. In the past, we have highlighted our quiz generator, our writing assignment, our remix assignment capability, lesson plan, our text transformer, and today we will be doing Tutor Creator. So if you are newer to the tool or you aren't newer to the tool, but you haven't explored many of these, we are just here to support you with any previous recordings, or if you even needed some more support, we can reach out and work with you directly. One thing that I will note today is I for sure will cover a little bit of our writing assignment just because it ties really nicely into what I'm going to create today with Tutor Creator. So you can take a little peek at that today. And if time, we'll spend a little bit in the chat as well. So with Tutor Creator, we are going to really consider selecting a person or a character that you want the tutor to kind of embody. And so what I would love for you to do and share with the group, if you're able at the moment, would be to share in the chat Who are a few people or characters that your students are into right now? It can sometimes be hard to kind of brainstorm what students are into these days. And so, who are your kiddos talking about? Who are they reading? If you wouldn't mind sharing some ideas in the chat just for us as a group, maybe you'll provide some good insight on what we could try today or what others could try. So if you could just write down briefly who your kiddos are into. Taylor Swift is one that I have done, and I have exhausted my patience with Taylor Swift. But I do know that it is a popular person there. I'm just writing down. And with that, of course, comes Travis Kelce, right? So you could try a little bit of both. They are back in the tabloids after Coachella. All right, so we will get started with just the overall process. So if you did not share in the chat, totally fine. Just kind of be thinking of some people that maybe your students would be interested in. The next thing to just consider, and you don't have to share these in the chat, but just consider for your own ideas as we go through the process is what is a learning standard or learning standards that you are currently working with? Or maybe you're not quite ready to dive into utilizing the standards within the tool yet, but maybe consider something like a current event coming up, or maybe just something a little bit more fun that your students are working on. Just have some sort of standard or topic in mind that you could use this afternoon, that you could use later this week or next week. Really try to think about something that you could use right in your classroom when we're done here today. So while you're considering that, I'm just going to open up our platform and we will get started. Just out of curiosity, if you want to drop this in the chat, have any of you created a tutor yet? Okay, some yeses, some not yet. Perfect. You have not yet. This is a great time to give it a try. If you have, this is a great time to refine your current process. So we'll jump on in. In order to locate the Tutor Creator, you will launch into your Chat for Schools platform. You will see here your My Classroom resources, and then below you're going to see your resources. Tutor Creator right now lives within Learning Studio. Within Learning Studio, this is where you'll see some other tools as well. Quiz, writing assignment, those other ones that I mentioned earlier. And then of course, Tutor Creator. So in order to generate or start creating your tutor, you will open up Tutor Creator. Now, if you have created tutors in the past, you will have some living within your existing tutors that you can always go back to, export to your different sections, maybe refine them a little bit, or maybe get rid of them. But in order to create a brand new one, you will go into New Tutor. And on the left side, there will be some information for you to fill out. The topic or learning materials that you would want to create. So I'm actually going to enter in some standards for my example today. You can upload a file. So as you consider maybe a piece of text that you have or different PDFs that you have, you're able to upload those. You are then able to select a grade level in which the tutor will interact with the students. And then you can have a character or person, and then special instructions. These last two are optional. Of course, it's great to select a character or person just for engagement purposes. It is not a requirement. And same thing with special instructions. What I will tell you about the special instructions is that they are actually really helpful and kind of refining the student's experience with the tutor, really putting some parameters on how you want students to engage with it. Perhaps having, the tutor encourage students to practice writing out their ideas, brainstorming, and giving them some overall good discussion questions. And so I do encourage special instructions, especially if you're really trying to be purposeful in what your students are getting out of the experience. Again, optional. So if you're like, actually, this is just a quick 10-minute activity about something super simple, you just want some engagement, totally fine. Something that I'll just mention that worked actually really well. A couple of weeks ago, I built out a tutor about the solar eclipse that happened. And it was like a super, super brief tutor. I threw in like one sentence of the topic or learning materials, asking it to compare the 2017 solar eclipse to this year's. I did Miss Frizzle, and it was super great and simple. So even if you just are wanting like a 10-minute activity about a current event, super cool thing to try, and maybe a little bit more low stakes if you're a little bit nervous about the overall experience for yourself and for your students. But for this case, I'm going to go a little bit more deep into this. So one thing that we've heard a lot is that a lot of educators are a little bit fearful about using AI when it comes to writing and the writing process. And so I've really encouraged the use of tutors with writing because it really does support them brainstorming, coming up with their ideas. It is not going to just finish a story for them. It's really going to support the process. So for today, I'm going to put in a writing example. So I'm going to grab my learning standards. I am selecting some Common Core standards for 8th grade, and it is going to be about narrative writing. So I am copying and pasting them right in here. One thing to note about the Tutor Creator is you could put one standard in, you could put a bunch in. Really depends on how you want to roll this out. If you want students to use it for like multiple weeks, more standards could probably be great. If you wanted to focus on one strand for 1 week, you could just put one in there. So I'm putting them all in here for narrative writing about real or imagined experiences, along with doing some information about the characters, dialogue, the sequence, conclusion, all of that good stuff. I am not uploading a file. I put everything here into the topic or learning materials. I am going to adjust the grade level as I pulled standards from grade 8. And today I switched it up and I'm going to do Ted Lasso. It came to me last night right before I fell asleep, and I was like, that could be fun. So I am switching mine up today. I have done a lot of Taylor Swift, Miss Frizzle, Adele, which I don't think kids are really into Adele, but I am. So I'm going to try Ted Lasso today. Now, I'm also going to put in some special instructions here. When it comes to writing, I really want the students to have a variety of experiences, like actually putting their thoughts into the tutor for some feedback. So I'm going to tell it to encourage students to practice their writing. I'm going to have it encourage students to practice writing different dialogue. That can be kind of hard. Practice their sequence. And I'm kind of grabbing these just from those learning standards, but I really want to pull some of those in. I really want students to be practicing actually writing their thoughts in with that dialogue. I kind of felt like that was kind of hard as a student with writing. Descriptive writing. So I'm just kind of encouraging some different things along here. You can put in more than that as well, but for sake of time, I'm just going to leave it there and I will select generate. It will take just a minute. It seems longer because we're all so into instant gratification, but it will just take a second. So if you're following along, you may have those bouncing shapes on your screen. And then you will have your tutor generated for you. So mine comes out with Coach Ted. It is going to give me an introduction. What you can see here is it is pulling in some of the kind of dialogue that Ted Lasso uses in the show, really going into like the game and things like that. And then it is going to list out some discussion questions. These questions will appear throughout the student's interaction with the tutor. Now, what you can do is you can edit things. So if you're like, actually, I don't love that introduction, I don't love some of these discussion questions, you can erase and rewrite those. And if you're like, actually, I just want a new one, you can regenerate that as well, and it will provide you with another response. Once it is exactly how you would like it to be, I'm going to just give this a moment to regenerate here. We will be able to export that to whichever section of students you are wanting it to go to. So once it looks great, you can go in, export to chat for schools. You can export that tutor. Mine is in a different experience than you as a teacher or administrator, but when you click export, you'll be able to select which section you would like that to go to. So of course, your different groups of students, maybe you have different grade levels, will be into different people, actually having to work with different standards as well. So you can export that to where you would like it to go. And then we can go in and play with that. So I'm going to go back to the Skillstruck logo there on the left. I'm going to go into my platform at the bottom, Chat for Schools. I'll just launch my educator version, or you could enter your student section. And then under tutors, you will have yours generate. So if you have used specialized tutors before, you may have a variety of them, or if it's your first time, your tutor should display there. So I'm going to open mine up, but I'm going to pause for a moment just for you to be able to ask any questions in the chat about that overall process, or if you need support getting to where we are at the moment. So if you need support, please let us know in the chat and I will check. All right. All right, I don't see any questions. So when you open up your tutor, you're going to see that introduction that the tutor creator created. So as I mentioned, you could edit that a little bit because students will see that. It will be the first thing that they see when they open up that chat. So mine is, hey there team, Coach Ted Lasso here, ready to guide you through this narrative writing. Love that they're bringing in a game plan, that a story takes strategy, creativity, so you can really see some of those components come out in that actual character. I will say not all of them come through the best. So regenerating sometimes, or editing that introduction sometimes will be an additional step to take. But this one is great today. So my coach here is here to coach me through all of this. Am I ready to kick off? Yes, I am. So now I can start engaging with that tutor. It is going to then kind of introduce me into like the process. So now we're going to establish a context, a point of view that really hooks your readers from the beginning. How can you introduce your setting? So the tutors do a really, really wonderful job at posing a lot of questions. We have had teachers utilizing tutors with their students, in which the students are always like, it asks so many questions. And the teacher mentioned, it's no different than when I'm standing next to you asking you all these questions and bothering you with all of them, right? And so what we can do then is engage in this process. So I'm not sure, can you help me brainstorm a setting? Okay, and it does a really great job at, again, prompting questions, helping students really think through the process. And it's not just providing them with a setting to get started. So really good back and forth options here for being tutored on those specific standards. Also with writing, it's just really great to not have to worry too much about it finishing those sentences, that story for them. The other thing that I'll just briefly mention is if you are a Canvas user, you are able to export the tutors right into Canvas, and students can launch their tutor right from there. And it will also provide you with the history there and some points value if you add point values to that as well. So if you are needing support with that, we can help you through that as well. But the next thing that I really wanted to point out to really make a connection between the tutor and some other tools is I'm going to go back into Learning Studio. And since I'm really thinking about writing, I am going to go into our writing assignment. So to get there, I just went back to that landing page and I'm going to visit Learning Studio and I will go into the writing assignment. Now, what you can do here is access your new assignment or your existing assignments and really generate a nice writing assignment. So what I could do to make a connection between my Ted Lasso tutor about narrative writing and a writing assignment would be to generate an assignment that really aligns to what I'm trying to tutor the students on. So let's say for 2 days, you're allowing them to go into the tutor, start thinking about their narrative writing piece, and now you want to assess a little bit. So what you could do is I'm just gonna do Ted Lasso narrative writing introduction. And what I could do is tie in some learning objectives or standards here. Maybe for this one, I just want to put in one of the strands instead of all of those to kind of focus on. I can adjust that grade level, and then I could even put in some special instructions like create an introduction of your narrative writing piece that you've been working with Coach Lasso on. Okay, then you can go next. And for this, you could select some of these different things that don't really go with what I'm trying. So I'm just going to select other. And then it will generate a writing assignment for the students along with a rubric. And so you'd be able to go in, export this for students and have them practice writing the introduction, really focusing on one strand from the tutoring, and engage with some off tutor assessing here. So kind of a nice connection. What I will tell you is that in the future, we're kind of streamlining this process. So we will be adding some assessment pieces right into the tutoring experience. But for right now, this is a great way to access a couple of different tools and help tie some of these things together and assess students with how they're progressing through the tutoring component. The last thing that I did forget to mention that I'll go back to really briefly is once you've created a tutor, you're able to share that tutor with others. So if you're like the science lead in your department, or if you work with multiple other ELA teachers or whatever it may be, or maybe you're an administrator, you can yourself generate tutors for your teams. So in order to do that, you can go back into that Skillstruck logo, Learning Studio, Tutor Creator, and then you can visit your existing tutors. And since I did Coach Ted Lasso, I can click on that. And on the left side, I can share that. It will be a simple shareable link. So I can even copy this and paste it to you in the chat here. And you're able to click on that and add it to your tutors. And where you will find that then would be back in tutors. It will then appear in your existing and shared. So once you've downloaded a tutor from someone else, it will be in there. Before you even export it to your account, you're able to edit it too. So if you're like, this is a great tutor, thanks for creating it for me, I'm just going to edit the introduction a little bit for my students, you can do that before exporting. So that's a really nice way to maybe divide and conquer and really vet out some of your tutors as well before you're having all students in your areas. Diving into the tutors. I did see something in the chat, so I'm going to go visit that. And sorry, I pasted that link to a direct message. Sometimes a website resource will be generated when you edit the website. Okay, so you should be able to, there's like some references that you can make for different websites that should like translate over. So if you edit that, it should. If it doesn't, please provide us feedback and we can kind of see how that is working with when a website is attached as a resource and if that is edited. I can do some research on that as well, but that should translate over. All right, we do have a few more minutes left. So if you have any questions on like Chat for Schools in general, please feel free to put them in the chat. Last week when we did this, we did have some questions to kind of walk through on just where to locate certain things. So if you need any support, like now is the time. In this nice smaller group, I can answer your questions. One thing that did come up last week that I'll just mention is that how do you see like students' interactions? And so within my classroom under students, you should be able to go in and view your students. You should be able to view them as a whole section or by your individual sections. This is also where you can lock and unlock the chat or the tutor modes, and then where you'll be able to go in and view all of the interactions that your students are having with the chat and the tutors. So oftentimes that's a really great place to peek at, see how students are using those tools, and of course, seeing if anything is flagged. So that question did come up last time, so I just wanted to ensure that you all knew where you can check to see and have some visibility on your students. But any other questions? I have a lot of fun ideas. So if you need ideas for using any of the tools or the chat tool and you need a little bit of brainstorming time, feel free to ask. All right. Well, that's all I have today. I did write down some names of people who direct messaged me that I can follow up with you on. So you will be hearing from myself or another Skillstruck team member if you did reach out for some additional support or some additional resources from our previous recordings. But thank you for joining. Enjoy the rest of your day. If you needed to stick back and ask any questions, all good.